green ferns. He always said I could have one corner of this farm. He was going to gift me one corner of the farm, but it was sloped like that. But I had dreams of cutting into the slope and building like an African hut with thatching and you know, mud daub, cow pats, like an African hut. That was my dream, but I never really took it very far. But as it turned out, he was never going to own that place, and he couldn't go and live there full time because there was no work. So, at some stage, like when he was with Bindi towards the end, all he did was ever complain about her and what an idiot she was, what a numbskull, you know. If she knocked a bong over in bed, and she was a numbskull and a moron. But she started to get some independence from him, and that made him panic. And she ended up, I think she went to America or something for one of these bus trips, a holiday on her own, and she might have met somebody over there, and that absolutely freaked him out. So when she came back, he was waiting at the airport with an engagement ring, and she knocked him back. She said, "No, I don't want to marry you." And of course that sent him into suicidal thoughts and crying, and you know, and he lost a lot of weight. Remember, he stopped eating, then he got real thin. So we comforted him, and I always remember something I said to him at that time, which made us laugh. He said, "You know, I worry about things so much." He says, you know, I just worry so much. And I said, "Your father was a worrier, Steve." He goes, "Yeah, he was." I go, "You and him once were warriors," you know, which was a reference to that New Zealand film, which we both loved. Once were warriors, and that cheered up the mood somewhat. But it didn't take him long to meet another woman. You know, once he made up his mind to meet another woman. So in the year 2000, and I reference this once again in my talk about my alcoholism and, you know, progress towards being a full-blown alcoholic. So in the year 2000, I turned 40, and we had my 40th up at his farm. I drew maps for my family and friends and all that, and they made the effort to drive up to his farm, some of them. And I remember fighting the urge to drink, and I went and disappeared for a while. I had some cans in the car. I told them I was going to the top of the hill to get phone reception, and I drank these cans, but essentially I didn't drink on my 40th, and I was real miserable. But, and I went to AA at the start of December 1999. But me and Steve had booked to go to Thailand for New Year's Eve. You know, it was going to be the year 2000 party like it's 1999. And he wanted to go a bit early. I said, "Look, I can't go until just after New Year's, because with the IT world, we were worried what was going to happen when the clocks ticked over to 2000. So he said, "Well, I'll go first." He left a week earlier than I did, and I'll go first. And then I said, "Well, I'll meet you in Koh Samui." That's where I'd been for holidays before, and I raved about it. I absolutely loved Thailand. So he flew off, and then I had a phone call from his parents a couple of days after he'd flown out, and they said, "Look, Steve's had a terrible time. He was robbed in Bangkok. He's lost his money. He was drugged, and he's going to come home early." And I said, "Oh, well, I'm due to fly out this weekend or something." I said, "Oh, I'll sort him out. I'll fix him up." So I got there to Koh Samui, and I met him, and he was flying out the next day, and I was livid. I was absolutely livid. I tried to talk him into changing his mind, but he said, "No, I was drugged. They cut my backpack open, stole all my money," and he'd already met another girl who had these kids. He'd met her about 2 weeks beforehand, so he wasn't into the locals, which I had visions of us partying and taking girls home from nightclubs and all that. He wasn't into that. He just wanted to go back to this girl who had these 2 toddlers that he was going to adopt, whatever. It was all talk about her. So I was livid, furious with him, and we had a big fight that night. And so he flew out the next day, and I woke up a couple of days later. I'd smashed the hotel room and had vomit all over my mouth, these big ants all over me. And I flew home way early, and I was pretty pissed off with him. The time went on, and fortunately we did get to go on another overseas jaunt again, and the second one worked out really good. Got myself this new Suzuki Vitara from the showroom. He came with me because he knew about cars, and a friend had one of these Suzuki Vitaras, so I got this soft top. It was gorgeous, fantastic little car, one of the best cars I've ever had. We just picked it up, and he suggested we go pig shooting up at right up the corner of Victoria. It's like a semi-desert, and there's wild pigs up there that he'd seen this ad in one of his shooting magazines for weekends. The place is actually called Euston, E-U-S-T-O-N, Euston, and it's real thick red dust. So the brand new Suzuki, which was like a very gay coloured aqua, packed it up. We had this trailer that I borrowed, and we took off, me, Doug and Steve, and no doubt with an armoury of rifles and ammunition for these pigs. And so we got up to this farm that they were going to let us shoot on their property. And once again, plenty of weed smoked on the way. So we get to the farm, and the owner has come out, and he said, "I'll come in," and he's given us a direction. So he's looking at, we're all glassy-eyed, of course. He's saying, so you want to go along the fence line, you'll cross one creek, one dried riverbed, turn left there, and then you're going to open the gate, go about 3 kilometres down there, look for the dead gum on the right, turn here, turn there. We're all nodding at each other like everyone else is listening. I hope, I'm thinking, I hope they're listening to this, because I was lost within the first few directions. So okay, we got that. So he says, "Is there anything you want? We're going into town." So of course, me being the alcoholic, I said, "Could you get us a slab of beer?" So I gave him the money, and goes, "Yeah, I'll leave it on the porch for you tomorrow." So as soon as him and his son or something got in their ute and drove off to do farm work, and we get in this real gay coloured Vitara, and off we go. And we were lost within seconds, like, it had gone in one ear and out the other. So we eventually got bogged in this, with the trailer. We had to dig the trailer out. We're up to our knees in mud. Eventually we found a camping spot. Didn't see any pigs. But the next day or something, it may have been the day after, but we went to the house to get this beer. I'll never forget this. And so the beer was on this porch of this guy's house, the farmer, and he said, "Oh, look, I'm out in the fields all day, so just grab it." I go, "Okay." So when we get to the house, the beer's on the porch, but there's this rabid blue heeler dog underneath the porch looking at me. And I go to Steve, so we park the car, so I get out to walk towards the house, and this thing shoots out at me, and it's real vicious and rabid, So I run back for the car, and it's trying to jump up and get to me in the car. Of course, it's scratching up my brand new car. So I said to Steve, "How are we going to do this? So we need to distract him. We need to come up with a plan." Of course, stoned. So we edged the car up to the porch, And we're getting Steve to open the door to distract it. It's racing round to his side and he's slamming the door shut and it's clawing at him. And then I ended up crawling along the bonnet of the car and leaping over to the porch to grab this slab of beer. Hilarious stuff, hilarious. So, yeah, as I said, me and him went overseas one time. So, when was it? Early 2000s. I'm going to say early 2000s. So I was working for the council then, and the internet was fairly new. So I spent a lot of my time at work surfing the internet, and I came across this place called Tarawa, but I couldn't pronounce it. I pronounced it as Taranara, Taranarawa, and it had pictures of the hotel there. It said hardly anyone ever visits. Blue seas. It's between Nauru and Hawaii, and it had been the scene of this fierce battle in World War II with the Japanese. And so I said to him when I saw him, I said, "Have you heard of this place, Taranarawa, where the Japanese and the Americans fought?" He says, "Yeah, Tarawa." I said, "Yeah, I was looking on the internet. It's this real nice sort of lodge, you can stay there, and there's lots to see, World War II stuff." And within a day or something, he rang me at work and he said, "I've got the prices. I've put a deposit on for the ticket. I've paid your deposit as well. I'm up for it." I said, "Yeah, okay, well, I'll get some time off work." And so we flew. So Tarawa is actually what they call Kiribati, which is spelled Kiribati. And they're atolls, right? They're coral, they're laid on coral, these atolls. They're probably all flooded out now, it's probably underwater. But when we went, as I said, it was the early 2000s. So we flew into Brisbane. That was my first hiccup, was I think I travelled on my British passport. I've got a British passport as well. I don't know why, but I wanted to use the British passport, and you needed a visa. If you're on a British passport, you needed a visa, whereas Steve had a New Zealand passport and they didn't need a visa. They did a lot of, or they do a lot of support work in Kiribati, New Zealand. They build a lot of infrastructure for them. So we ended up spending a couple of days in Brisbane, and we went to this pub first night or something, and Steve had gone to the toilet, and I saw this girl at the bar. I thought it was Steve from behind. I've never seen anyone with hair like his. Steve's hair was amazing. It was a subject of some, he was very sensitive about it. He'd get into fist fights with kids that would tease him about his hair. It was massive. But this girl had the same hair, so I went up and spoke to her at the bar. I said, "My mate is going to come out in a minute." I said, "You two are like twins." And she goes, "Oh, I can't wait to meet him." So those two hit it off straight away. We were in a hotel waiting for the visa to come through for me. And yeah, she ended up, him and her ended up, hitting it off. I get that rubbed in my nose as well about how much sex they're having. They went off to have tattoos the next day together. And anyway, yeah, eventually the visa comes through. So we flew in onto Tarawa, and picked up a hire car. Another thing that annoyed me was his driving. He always drove fast and dangerous. So I remember we picked the car up and I'm telling him, "Slow down, man, slow down." Got all like chickens and dogs and people on the road, and he's driving along. We picked up these girls in this, I wouldn't call it a nightclub, but it was like a hall where there was disco and there were lots of locals in there dancing. It was all sweaty and hot. Picked up these two girls, and he was trying to impress them driving fast in this hire car. But anyway, yeah, sometimes we could get a bit niggly with each other, That's friends for you. So yeah, we found these amazing, he was in his element, bunkers and tank turrets and guns, coastal guns. There was this beach where the Marines had come ashore. And they got beached. The tide was out and their landing craft got beached, and the Japanese picked them off. They lost like 1,000 men taking this beach, the Marines. We were wandering through the shallows, and I found a shell from an American, M45 or whatever they were using. He knew what it was, so I gave that to him. There was a burnt out Japanese tank on the ship on the beach front. He knew the exact story of those tanks. He could tell me exactly how they got there, how they burnt out, the timeline of capturing Tarawa. So that stuff was pretty good. I had the guitar with me. I wasn't drinking then. Had the guitar with me, and yeah, we met these guys that were like, they worked on the fisheries. They worked on trawlers. They were helicopter pilots, so they'd go up in the air and they'd look for these schools of fish, whether they were tuna or whatever they were looking for. But they were from all around the world, from England, Papua New Guinea, America, and they were staying at the same. There's only one lodge on the island that you could stay, and the crayfish and the lobster. Wow, Steve loved seafood. We were ordering like 2 of these huge crayfish every night for dinner, 2 each, I ended up meeting a girl. I remember, that's right, I was walking around, it was lunchtime and Steve was kind of doing his thing or whatever, and I remember walking around, and this local came up and said, "Oh, hello, where are you from?" I told him. He said, "Will you come and have lunch with us?" I said, "Yeah, okay." So we went, I walked through these, laneways and huts, and and we got to this guy's hut, and there was all matting on the floor, so we went in. And I always remember there was like 2 or 3 men there, half a dozen women. There was a child playing with his broad bladed knife, doing this into the ground. The kid was about 3 years old, playing with his horrendous looking knife. So anyway, it was time for lunch. So he says, "Are you on your own?" I said, No, I'll send my friends back at the lodge. He says, "Oh, I'll send someone to get him." So they got me this drink. It was just like cordial or something, red cordial. Steve arrived, but he didn't like the look of the place. He said, no, I'm going back to the hotel. He says, "I'm worried that I'm going to get sick if I drink that water you're drinking." So the guy says, "Do you need a girl or something?" I think that'd be nice. So he went and organised this girl to come and meet me, and she hung around with me for the rest of the time we were there. But anyway, yeah, so when it was time for, and they were watching this beauty pageant on TV, like Miss Pacific or something. "And now we have Miss Bougainvillea." And out would come this lady with a flower in her hair, and they'd all be applauding. And so we ate this food, and then when we were finished, we all sat up against the walls, and then the women came out and ate their share of the food. So yeah, I think we were there for about 5 or 6 days. So the other thing that was pretty good was, I think I had the car, and I was driving this girl back to where she lived one lunchtime, and Steve was back at the hotel having a snooze or something. And as I drove her back, I saw this bridge where these kids were standing on the edge of the bridge, jumping into this water, duck diving into the water. It was gorgeous. I mean, the blue turquoise water all around the atoll. And when I got back to the hotel, I said to Steve, "Oh, do you want to go for a swim?" I said, "These kids were jumping off this bridge into what looked like a lagoon or something." And he was a water baby. Steve absolutely loved swimming in hot tubs. So we grabbed this. I had this inflatable, call it a Smurfy tube. I got it in the 70s, and I've still got it. I haven't used it for decades, but yeah, I took it to quite a few overseas holidays. But you blew it up. It was an inflatable tube. So we got to this where these kids were, and this was the highest point on the atoll, which isn't saying very much. It was only a few meters off. It was a bridge. I don't know, 10 metres maybe, if that, maybe 5, I don't know, but it wasn't very high. But you could jump off this, and the ocean would rush in to this lagoon, swirl around, and then the tide would rush it back out again. That's what these kids were doing. They were jumping in, being swept into one area, splashing around, and then coming out again. And they'd clamber back up the side of the the dunes and get back up onto the road bridge to jump in again. So that's what we started doing, me and him. And I remember his tattoo was still really fresh from Brisbane. He was supposed to keep it out of the salt water, but of course it was too good to pass up. So he was jumping into the ocean, into this lagoon with the tube, and the kids. I'd be floating on the tube, and these kids were like little brown-skinned dolphins. They'd be underneath, and they'd pop up and go hello, and then they'd go back under and swim past you. Yeah. So that made amends for the horrible trip to Thailand. And so we came back, and I suppose we started to part ways a little bit after that. So I was in a relationship with the witchy woman in Paran, and that was the end. Actually, that might have been the end of him and Bindi, because that's right. So he also bought this big Bedford van called Mr. Big. It was fully decked out, and he says to me, cause I remember I was living with the witchy woman in Paran when this happened. So he says, look, I'm going to go and live. We're going to go live in this van. I could be gone for years. I don't know how long I'll be gone, but we're going to travel Australia in Mr. Big. And he decked it out with the stereo and TV and the bed in the back and big screen TV and all that. And him and Bindi were going across the Kalgoorlie, across to Western Australia, and then up to Broome and all that to start with. So we had a big farewell for him, and off he went. And I think this might have been the moment that the relationship broke down. They had been to the Solomons together. After Tarawa, me and him in Tarawa, he took Bindi to the Solomons to see more World War II stuff, Japanese. And he told me that all she did was sit around the pool, read books. She wasn't interested in any of that. It was a waste of a trip on her. And he did get this carving over in the Solomons that I ended up with after we lost him. I'll show that to you guys, and this means a lot to me. But anyway, yeah, so they took off in Mr. Big to go, ostensibly to go and work and live around Australia for years. And I didn't think much of it, but about a month later, I came home one night and there was a leopard skin boot on the front door. It was late at night when we got home, me and my woman, and I didn't even think about this boot. I just threw it into the garden, and we came inside, we went to bed, and the next morning, bang, bang, bang on the door, and he says, did you get my message? I said, what message? He says, my boot. I said, oh. He says, yeah, I came back early. He says, it was a complete waste of time. All she did was read a book. This is Bindi. She sat in the passenger's seat reading a book all the way across to Perth. He says, we got up to Broome or something, and I decided we've got nothing in common. So I just turned the car around and we came home. And it's over. And that must have been when she went to America and he wanted to get back with her or something. I don't know. Something like that. But anyway, yeah, so I broke up with that woman because of my alcoholism. It was horrific for her. So I moved out and I moved in with the Argentine guy, the Argentine boy. And that's when I started exploring genderism, transgenderism. And I started to discover this world on the internet that I didn't know existed, and it appealed to me. It still appeals to me. but he couldn't come at that at all. He was in his way quite homophobic. He called them woolly woofters, and he was very uncomfortable about gay people. He was old-fashioned in some ways, he was. And so we started to drift apart a little bit, but we still hung out a bit. And when I started going to that Q bar in Paran, you know, when I got into the nightclub scene with Eckies and all that, I took him along a few times, but he wasn't all that comfortable. He didn't like ecstasy at all. It upset his stomach. Yeah, hi everyone. This one I'm calling The Oysters and the Alien, as will become apparent. So I knew this Dutch girl called Robin, and she lived way out on the furthest extremities of the suburbs, and I was friends with her for quite a while, but she let me know one time in conversation that the parents were going away, and then we found out she had a hot tub. Well, Steve loved hot tubs. He loved water. He was a water baby. And Robin had a friend called Emma, who was kind of a bit of a hippie girl with the dreadlocks. And so we said we'd come up and we'd bring the food, and these girls could put on the hot tub. So that was the arrangement. So we decided, I don't know whose idea it was to get oysters, right? You got a couple of dozen of these oysters and some champagne and the obligatory bag of weed. These girls like to smoke bongs. So we get in the, probably the big Brougham, get in the big car. Steve and I had a way we could drive for hours and never exchange a word, just lost in our own thoughts. Listening to the music thumping out of the speakers, be Judas Priest or yeah, really loved Judas Priest. I'm not sure about Iron Maiden as much, but stuff of that ilk. Bon Jovi, he liked Bon Jovi. Anyway, we got to Robin's place, and we get into the kitchen. So the first thing we're going to do is going to make the girls these oysters, right? Now Robin's gone and turned the hot tub on, and so we're going to make you know, where you put the bacon on the oyster, and then you put a bit of the Worcestershire sauce, right? And then put it on the grill for a few minutes. So we heated up these oysters, got stuck straight into the champagne, smoking bongs, and then it was time for the hot tub. So me and Steve go get in the hot tub. We took another bottle of champagne with us. It was quite hot when we got in. And we settled in. Of course, we were nude, and we could see into the house, into the bedroom, where the two girls seemed to be locked into a deep conversation. And it seemed to go on for about an hour before they came and joined us. So Steve and I were getting excited. Is that the phrase? We wanted the action to start, right? But we drank too much, and Steve got sick. I don't know what it was, but he got sick and he threw up the oysters. They were floating around this hot tub into the filter, and it was just horrible. So he says, I got an upset tummy. So he goes into the house. And the girls came out and they go, oh fuck, we're not getting into that. So I don't know what happened. They seemed to disappear again for a while, and things get a bit murky here. I'm struggling to know what happened in the missing time, but at some stage I went back to the hot tub and I climbed in again, and unbeknownst to me, Robin had gone and turned it off. So it was like an hour, right? I'd been missing for about an hour when Emma and Robin came and found me. And I had shrunk. I was like the mummy of Ankh-Tut-Ramun, undiscovered in the tomb for 2,000 years. All my skin was wrinkled. I I was in fetal position. It was lucky I hadn't slipped under the water, you know. But they got me out. I couldn't walk. My body had shrunken so much I couldn't walk. So they helped drag me inside, and the girls got hair dryers, laid me on the couch on a towel and ran hair dryers over me till my life started coming back into my body, which is how we get to the alien bit. So I'm sitting on the couch wrapped with blankets and talking to Robin, when out of the corner of my eye I see Steve on all fours running like that across the hallway, just out of the corner of my eye, like that creature from Alien when it runs across the floor, or like horror movies when you see people on all fours running up the wall, right? That's how it was. I didn't know, but he'd scurried across to what he thought was a bed. It was the dog basket. Robin had these 2 big German shepherds. So he slept in the dog basket, and all night he thought it was me. Like the shepherds were put out by having someone in their bed. They were laying next to it, licking each other or licking themselves. And he thought it was me. He's going, "Carter, stop licking. Shut the fuck up." And he's reaching out to kick me. He's kicking the shepherd, who just continues to lick all night until it was first light. And Steve realised it wasn't me that was laying next to him. I was asleep on the couch. We got up before Robin and Emma had even woken. We said nothing. We just got dressed, got back in the car and drove all the way back to Steve's place without exchanging a word. Oysters and the alien. And yeah, he, as I said, he was old-fashioned in some ways, but I took him along to the Q-bar a few times. So, as I mentioned, I went to live with the Argentine boy for a while, but things were pretty messy. I was coming to the tail end of my phase 1 of alcoholism, where things were out of control, and I was bringing home all sorts of danger to our little flat.